This episode is brought to you by VPP Simplified. Now you can get element by element tracking and guidance for your VPP journey. Every aspect of the VPP requirements in one easy-to-use interactive spreadsheet. It explains every sub-element in detail, contains an easy-to-read stoplight so you can track current status for each sub-element. It provides you with a 3-step verification for completion of each sub-element. There's even a notes section for you to compile language that will eventually be used for your VPP application. It even comes complete with graphs to show current state and track your progress moving forward. Look, achieving VPP star status can be tough, but understanding what it takes to get there can be simplified. This VPP Gap tool will help you do that. Go to vppsimplified.com for more information.
Welcome to the Safety Pro Podcast, where we help you manage workplace safety one episode at a time. And now, your very own Safety Pro, Blaine J. Hoffman.
Welcome back to another episode of the Safety Pro Podcast. I want to continue our conversation on culture, specifically safety culture in the workplace. Now, the last episode, I very broadly touched on culture in general, and I kind of gave you two things to look at if you're, scratching your head, struggling with, hey, where do we begin in addressing safety culture in our organization? You can look to where you already have successful culture, in another area of the business, whether it's, quality, delivery, cost, things like that. Or you can also look to your frontline supervisors and look to see where we have some gaps in what in our mind we would like to expect to see in the way of behavior out of our employees versus what is being demonstrated or the expectations being set by frontline supervisors. What are they driving the most that is in turn driving the culture you do have, if that makes sense, right? So look to those two things. I want to kind of dive into the different types of culture, or if you do a quick internet search, you'll find a host of graphics on the culture continuums, cultural maturity scales, things like that. I want to talk about 5 different scales that you can, mature through, or that you could fall on in any given time, how you can kind of assess where you're at on this. And the culture, this continuum or this scale, if you will, this maturity scale is very important because you have to first manage from where you're at. And a lot of folks, it's okay to start with the end in mind. We tell everybody to start with the end in mind. You want to start with the end in mind, but we know what the end result is that we want to achieve. We know what success looks like. We could probably loosely define it. And when it comes to EHS culture, we kind of know what it is we're after, or what a great safety or engaged safety culture would look like. It's okay to put a pin there for that, right? But now you have to know where you currently are so you can determine how big of a gap you have to close. And that tells you what to work on. So we're going to get into that today. We're going to talk about where you are on the EHS culture continuum so you can start formulating your change plan and address the areas that need addressing. Before we get into that episode, I want to take a moment to talk about Mighty Line Floor Tape. Mighty Line Floor Tape is the exclusive floor tape and sign company for the Safety Pro Podcast. A little bit about Mighty Line Floor Tape that you need to know. It is the strongest, most durable industrial floor marking product out there. The Mighty Line difference is their patented technology in the floor tape. Their tapes, floor signs, floor markings, they're made to hold up to the rigors of industrial activity, including warehouses. And in addition to unsurpassed durability, they're easy to install and have minimal residue upon removal. What I love about Mighty Line Floor Tape, they know how important safety is to your organization. And the breadth of the Mighty Line product line covers everything you need to implement a 5S system for the increased productivity of your facility and the safety of your workers. So here's some quick facts that might be important for you to know. Mighty Line floor tape is 7 times thicker than the average floor tape. Their patented technology makes it more durable than other floor tapes. The beveled edge increases durability for forklift traffic, and the peel and stick adhesive removes easily. They have everything you need to organize and safeguard your facility. With a variety of colors and shapes, your use of Mighty Line floor tape and markers can help indicate workflow, delineate work areas, and mark proper placement of equipment, tools, inventory, and machinery. You can learn more at mightylinetape.com/podcast. And what's even better, it's made right here in the USA. So once again, Mighty Line Floor Tape, the official floor tape and floor marking product supplier for the Safety Pro podcast. I talk a lot about tools that you need at your disposal. You can go back into past episodes where I talk about 5S and floor marking and just safety signs, labels, things like that. It's always good to have a solid go-to company when you need these solutions. This is the solid go-to company of the Safety Pro podcast. So once again, check out mightylinetape.com/podcast. Okay, so let's get right back into Culture Continuum. Where are you right now? Where do you rank? What type of safety culture do you currently have? It's very important. Again, as I said earlier, we know what success looks like. It's okay to keep that in mind, but let's shift our focus to managing from where you are at right now. That is the most important thing. You could break this into 5 different columns on the maturity scale. At the lowest end, you could be an at-risk culture. You know, what we say, under compliance is another term you might hear. And you know, if you're in this column, if leadership and frontline supervisors see their employees as risks and hazards, meaning I can't trust any of these workers, I have to watch them all the time, they're going to break stuff, they're going to get injured. Obviously, you can look at your lagging indicators. If your injury illness rate is high, your workers' compensation premiums are out of control, things like that. Those are some red flags, obviously, but we're talking about culturally. How does leadership view the workers in general? Do they view them as a risk versus solution identifiers? Do you not have a regular, battle rhythm around conducting audits? I'm talking leadership here. Frontline supervisors going out there and doing audits and asking questions of the employees. Why is this like this? Why is that like that? Is there another way we can do this? If you have no rhythms around that and you have no way of assessing the state of safety on an ongoing basis through scorecards, I don't care if it's a balanced scorecard, I don't care if it's an audit checklist, pass-fail type of thing. If you have nothing really set up around that, then you're probably looking at, from a leadership standpoint, an at-risk culture in your workplace. So you're driven by lagging indicators, by events that occur, right? And your basic daily goal is, who can I not get injured today? I just need to get past today. So those are some indications that you're at an at-risk culture if you look at leadership. You can look at employees. And this is an important distinction. Your leadership could be at another level on the continuum that we'll talk about the other levels here, but your employees could be at this at-risk culture level, right, or a different level. So basically, employees, they don't feel they own the safety program. They feel like it is put upon them. It is something they have to, try to work hard every day to comply with. But it's like, if I followed all the safety rules the company put out, I wouldn't be able to do half of my job. So they're taking some calculated risks in their work. They don't have any input on procedures, policies, work instructions, nothing like that. They're not consulted. And they feel they don't have a whole lot of opportunities to participate in EHS at all. Reporting concerns, reporting injuries, illnesses, things like that. Your employees may be at this cultural stage of an at-risk culture. Also look at your organization as a whole, in general. Does the organization lean more towards learning and continuous improvement, or is it just getting through the day to day? We have a basic safety program, and really our focus is about getting product out the door. And, we don't focus on the how that we do that. We haven't identified major hazards, and we don't have those as targets to improve going forward. We don't have a strong PM system. We don't invest in technology to track concerns and incidents and things like that. It's just basically a paper system, and as something occurs, we try to deal with it, and we just move on from there. So you can look at your organization, you can look at your employees, you can look at frontline supervisors and try to gauge, where you're at. Are you an at-risk culture? The next level up from that, slight step up in the right direction, is a compliant culture, or we call basic compliance. So this is where you have a safety supervisor, safety coordinator, something like that. They drive this, and it's like every day, 100 miles an hour. The end of the shift, they go home. The beginning of the shift, they have to pick right back up and get everything going again. And it's a battle every day, a struggle. So with leadership, if the focus is on solely the injury illness rate and not avoidance, but can we deny that claim? Can we do something to knock that off the OSHA 300 log? Is that really recordable? And trying to micromanage events after they occur is a good indication that you're a compliant culture. So they're trying to be in compliance, but they're looking for ways to micromanage it after the fact. So they're not focused on preventing things or avoiding issues. They're very reactive. Any safety audits, inspections being done, it's most likely 9 times out of 10 going to be the safety coordinator, the safety manager doing them, nobody else. That's the only person in the organization that has any sort of regular rhythm around, EHS types of activities, right? That's another example, if you look at leadership, that you have a basic compliance culture. We're striving to comply. When you look at your employees, how you can tell you have a basic compliance culture is maybe you have a safety committee or a small team. It's very passive. You have meetings, but again, the safety coordinator, safety manager leads all the meetings and basically tells the safety committee what occurred in the past and what that means, what we have to change going forward. And you expect to see that more out on the floor. They go back to their work, and then it's right back to business as usual. It's checking a box. What do I need to do to be minimally compliant, and then move on? There is no proactive engagement at that level. So even if you have a safety committee. So that's one example when you can look at employees and say, how involved are they? How can I tell if I have a culture of basic compliance looking at our employees? You can also determine whether or not you're just have a basic culture, basic compliance culture, is if only 1 or 2 employees are really, really involved because they see an opportunity. They're the same ones that volunteer for the safety committee, even though the safety committee is not very active or even proactive. It's the same folks that want to get involved, and nobody else really steps up. That's a pretty good sign of, you have a pocket here or there of folks that want to get involved, but that's it. Other than that, it is, hey, look, I'm coming here, I'm punching the clock, I'm doing my job. Just tell me what I need to do. I just need to know the basics. So you can look at your organization as a whole kind of holistically at this level as well to say, we've invested a little bit in hiring a safety manager, and the safety manager comes with some credentials. We expect that safety manager to get spun up on, culture development, things like that. And that's their job. Their job is to help us fix that. We don't want to know about it. We don't want to hear about it, for the most part, but, that's their role. So if the organization has gone as far as saying we've identified that we need to invest in a position to help deal with this and manage this day to day for us, then, that's better than the at-risk culture. It's one step up to basic compliance. We just want to comply. So that's a good indicator of a basic compliance culture is you have a safety manager, and if that's you, look inward at yourself and say, honestly, I'm the one that drives all this activity. If I called in sick tomorrow, nothing would get done. Nobody would do audits. Nobody would do training. Nobody would do the safety talk. Nobody would do the morning meeting. That's a strong indicator that you have a culture of basic compliance. Now, one more step up from that. Getting better here, folks, but one more step up right in the middle of this continuum or maturity curve, right? Smack in the middle. This is what we call a culture of established guidelines and principles, or an established culture. This is where we go up one level on the org chart. We are no longer talking about the safety manager driving all of these activities, but that supervisor. So maybe the site leader, plant leader, area manager, something like that. They're the ones that are driving this. They feel like they themselves own this piece and are working hand in hand with that safety manager. Leadership actually starts looking at metrics, including near misses and some other leading indicators like, hey, how many audits did we do last month? Why, how many safety talks were held last month, and why did we miss some? That kind of stuff. When the site leadership is asking these questions, we have somewhat of we've established safety in the culture, within the culture, with leadership. That's a good sign. That's a good place to be. Okay, you can still build on that, but this is a good place to be. Leadership owns safety, certain aspects of safety programs, policies, and procedures. They're even involved in some of the safety talks, doing some audits, things like that. You can look at your employees and say, do we have this type of a culture, right? Have we established safety as a basic aspect of our culture? One, going back to the previous step, you have a safety committee, but they're actually involved in working on projects. They're actually bringing ideas to the table and pushing these up. And whoever heads the committee, a leadership or a safety manager, takes these ideas and runs with them and helps facilitate them. They're actually contributing to improving the workplace. Also, here's another great indicator. If you have employees that are willing to stop work because something is wrong and raising a hand, calling maintenance, calling safety, calling a supervisor and saying, hey, this guard is loose, something like that. That is a good indicator that you, with the employee group, that you have established safety as a basic aspect of our culture. They're willing to, they feel comfortable doing that, raising their hand. Also, if you have any kind of, engagement activities planned, like a safety day once a year, you have at the holiday party, you do a safety award or something like that, where we're actively recognizing each other, that's another good indicator that you have established safety as an aspect of our culture. It's an established culture. The basic goal here at this level of the continuum is that we identify risks instead of the previous one where we just try to avoid them and just basic compliance. And then the at-risk culture before that is they're still occurring. We're just reacting to them and trying to stay ahead. So this is, the third of the five, this is the third one. So we have an at-risk culture as the lowest left side of the continuum. A compliant culture is the next step. Right in the middle is an established culture. As far as your organization goes, if the organization invests in the development of not just the EHS manager or coordinator, but starts investing in training and development for supervisors, right? And for management, this is where we start to see that, hey, the company, the organization expects leadership to drive this, to be involved, to step up a little bit more and own some of these items, right, with regards to environmental health and safety. So that is a very good sign when you look at the organization. So we've looked at leadership, individual members of leadership. We've looked at the employees, and now we're looking at the organization and see, how they view and approach EHS from a cultural aspect. Building on that, you've got an established culture. How do we build on that? That's next. That's to more integrating safety into other areas of the business beyond the safety department. An integrated culture is what we're talking about. It's driven by leadership as a group, not just one site leader or manager. The goal of all of these activities and their involvement is to not just to identify risks, but actually reduce or eliminate risks altogether throughout the business before anything happens. So we're integrating safety into our lean quality initiatives, things like that, right? HR is involved in hiring and developing orientation that includes safety training, things like that. Leadership has maybe scorecards that they're judged against, where their annual reviews, performance evaluations, bonuses are tied in some way, shape, or form to safety metrics. That's a good sign. Obviously, you've got more than just a site manager or plant manager. You've got supervisors across the board going out and engaging in safety activities, doing walks, safety walks, doing safety meetings every morning or every Monday morning or something like that. And leadership and employees actually they own certain aspects of the safety program. You actually have a maintenance leader owns the lockout tagout for the plant, not the safety manager, right? The maintenance manager matures beyond scheduling work orders that come through and prioritizing them to the staff, and then somebody else not even in their department, probably not even on the same level, org level on the chart as them, but comes around afterwards and watches them work and writes them up for not following lockout tagout procedures. You have the maintenance manager or leader owns the lockout tagout and electrical safety program. That's just an example. Confined space is another one where most workers don't enter confined spaces to do, repairs and maintenance. If a maintenance department does that, they would own that program because they're the ones that own those spaces. And that maintenance worker, now we're taking it down from leadership to the employees, maintenance workers feel a sense of ownership in that they tell operators, hey, don't go in there. You don't go into that vault. That's our job. You can't go in there. We own that. Hey, the operator, you can't lock that machine out to do minor repairs. We do that. We, because of the safety training and equipment that you need, you don't have. We own that. That's just another example you can look to is to see that you've integrated safety beyond the safety department, beyond a standalone policy and handbook, that you've actually integrated it into other areas of the business where you've got people that actually own elements of that safety management system. Now, looking at the employees, continuing on with that, there's obviously clear evidence that stop work has been done and continues to be done. They're raising their hand, they're stopping work, they're calling maintenance. This is a good sign. When an employee can go to another employee for solutions and they work on problems together to keep things moving, that is a great sign that you've integrated safety into the culture, the overall culture of the workplace. The established culture would be they stop work, raise their hand, and get a supervisor and let the supervisor take care of it. When they start collaborating together, employee groups collaborate together, peer to peer, that's a good sign that you've got somewhat of a more mature EHS culture. As far as the organization as a whole goes, how you can tell you're sitting at this level of integrating safety into other aspects of the business is that when you're looking at new work or redesign work, safety is one of the boxes they check in looking at new equipment, new machinery, new chemicals being brought in. They're either checking the safety data sheets for those chemicals or reaching out and pulling safety into the planning process. They're looking at guarding and e-stops, things like the light curtains and things like that to be installed and integrated into machinery before it's even shipped to the plant. Or they're looking at a job site design and layout, and they're bringing safety into the job, the pre-planning meetings, in that regard. So we've integrated safety into how we conduct our business as an organization. This is what we do. Another good indicator that we've integrated safety as a basic part of our culture as an organization. If the company says once a year we're going to have our underwriters come out, audit our workplaces, and give us feedback on how we're doing, identifying some risks. We're going to have consultants come in once a year and we've invested in that, do training with our supervisors to continue to develop them, right? So that's a good sign. Is this the end here? No. There's actually another level that we typically see in any of these culture continuums, matrix, any of these maturity curves that you can see, and you just do a quick Google search and you'll find a whole bunch of them, but it's called best in class or safety excellence culture. This one builds on the integrated culture in the following ways. We go from leadership driving safety to employees driving safety. And the overall goal of the organization, the overall goal of the safety program isn't to reduce risks and eliminate risks anymore. It is to learn from what we see out on the floor with near misses, safety concerns, and how can we continue to learn as an organization to become safer. So when you look at leadership, here are some good indicators that you have a best-in-class or a safety excellence culture, or you're striving for continuous safety excellence. You've got safety mission or vision or general beliefs that are actually posted, and your work is aligned to those beliefs. That is key, because you can go through most workplaces and see the banner that says safety starts here or safety is job one. In 5 minutes in a facility, you can tell, no, it isn't. There's no way it is. So we're talking about espoused values at that point. We espouse the values maybe we wish we had, and they look good, but we don't actually hold those values to be true. One indication of a best-in-class or safety excellence culture is that when you see those values or beliefs posted, and then you look and talk to people and say, and you can see that my daily activities, my safety meetings, the pre-planning meetings, employee engagement, when you talk to frontline leadership, they're driving that stuff. They're doing those things. They're aligned to the beliefs that are posted. You can see routine visibility of leadership on all shifts, out on the floor where the work happens. They're engaged. They're aware of the various defenses needed to keep employees safe. When a supervisor, a frontline supervisor, walks up to an employee and says, you can't go into that vault, you got to get maintenance. That's a confined space, so I don't expect to see you going in there. Or, hey, you have to lock that out, before you change that tooling. You didn't do it the proper. When the frontline supervisor knows the safety defenses, that's a good sign. That is where you want to be. Now, shifting to the employees, we can look at the employee group and say, are we at this level? Do employees mentor each other? Do they take new employees under their wing and continue to invest in its new workers and develop them and getting them up to speed, peer-to-peer? Do they volunteer or suggest a sort of an OJT or buddy or mentorship program that's structured that the organization can put together? Are they pushing for that, asking for that? Are the employees aware of and can recite these safety defenses or safety policies, procedures, these programs that are designed to keep them safe? Do they have a sense of ownership of those? Do the committees, maybe you have an ergo committee now, you've gone beyond basic safety committee, right? But now you have other committees and groups. Do they work to leverage best practices around the site or across various project sites, right? So something we learned out of an event, a near miss, or a safety talk, or an observation where we ID'd something and we actually learned something from it. Do the employees ask or want or seek to share that across the site or across other projects going on so that others can use that knowledge? That is a good sign that you have best-in-class or a safety excellence culture. As far as the organization goes, one way you can determine if the organization, again, holistically, big, 30,000-foot view, is that when the organization has said, we want written job descriptions for all leadership and management positions, and we're going to bake into the role the expectation for certain safety requirements, either safety actions and activities be conducted or sense of driving ownership of safety into the leadership positions. Does the organization expect and require a change plan for any of the previous items that I talked about in the integrated culture. So they have consultants come in to do audits. They have the underwriter come in to do assessments. But the results of those, does the organization expect sort of annual safety and health goals and objectives be developed and met or exceeded as a standard practice? Does the organization maybe even look at department-specific goals and objectives? So these are all indicators that we have a best-in-class or safety excellence culture. So we have an at-risk culture at the low end, moving up to a basic compliance culture, to an established safety culture, to an integrated safety culture, and a safety excellence culture. And this is where you would start to, the last two, an integrated safety culture and a best-in-class safety culture, those two right there, those are the organizations that would seek to partner with outside organizations as well, like the Voluntary Protection Program, the VPP, partnering with OSHA, doing the ISO program, the ANSI Z10 standard, safety excellence. Any of those types of things where we want to continue to learn and grow, and we're willing to let outsiders come in and judge us and hold us accountable, that's a thumbs up that you feel you're in that sort of moving along to the right side, the upper right end of that curve. So remember those. Are we an at-risk culture, a basic compliant culture, an established culture, integrated culture, or best-in-class or safety excellence culture? And look for those signs. I'll have a graph for you. Download it on the show notes if you want to use this little chart to see where you're at and then how you can determine where you are. And hey, again, I've said it in many other episodes, and I will continue to say it because it works. The VPP Simplified Gap tool, I've used it for years. It has all the elements of what OSHA would expect an excellent safety and health management system to contain. Has all of the elements. You don't have to be partnering with OSHA to use this gap tool. If you go through the 4 elements and all the sub-elements and score yourself and grade yourself and see where are our gaps here, you're going to be able to see real quick where you're at on this culture continuum. So this is another tool for you to use, the culture continuum or maturity curve, if you will. You can use this to gauge where you currently are. It's very, very important to understand where you are at today or current state, because we know what future state is. Everybody can identify success and future state. The question then immediately shifts to, where are we at now? How do we determine that? And then from there, we can determine the gap. How wide is that chasm, if you will, that we have to bridge? Then you can come up with strategies to close those gaps. And that's how we do this. Listen to the previous episodes where I talked about the 4 elements of the VPP. They apply to any company looking to improve their safety program, not even trying to partner with OSHA, but you would use the same elements. Listen to the previous episode where I talked about setting, safety and health goals and objectives and how to do that and avoiding some pitfalls associated with, setting bad goals and objectives. Continue to listen. I appreciate you tuning in. As we continued our talk on safety culture, I wanted to put a pin in the first episode where I introduced culture as a topic on the podcast. We'll have other updates going forward as, we find new things to share. We'll always share them with you. But this one right here is really, really good. I loved using this matrix, if you will, this maturity curve, different graphs and charts to find out where we are currently. And then you can look to the right and determine if that's where we want to be. We know what we need to do to get there. So there are tools out there. I wanted to share that with you, and we will continue to share the tools that we know you can use to help keep your employees safe going forward. Hey, if you're a new listener, thanks for listening, and you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit subscribe, and please leave us some feedback. You can do it right there in the Apple Podcast app or the Google Play, or hit the email link in the show notes. We'd love to hear from you. I would also like to hear some ideas for topics that you want to learn more about. We're always taking listener requests, and culture is one of them as well. I've gotten a lot of emails about culture, and I'm going to continue to talk about it going forward. So keep those emails coming. I appreciate everybody listening. And don't forget to visit our sponsor, mightylinetape.com/podcast. Learn about how you can keep your employees safe by appropriately marking and delineating work areas in your facilities using the best product on the market today. Thanks again for listening, and until the next episode, be safe.